Grab some coffee, a Mountain Dew, maybe both. A storm is brewing. The Brainstorm. Welcome to The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike.
Hey, welcome to The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike. Mike, man, there's a lot going on. Since last time we were on the show, the world seems to be changing very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's always changing, but we've been in a time where lots of changes occurring, and we got Freddie here as well with us, and we've just been helping clients adjust to some of these changes, and we could dive a little deeper on that today. But with every change, in every crisis, there's an opportunity that comes from it. In fact, history will show us that the greatest accomplishments have been birthed during times of extreme circumstances, ones where people had to face challenges and they had to innovate and find ways to overcome them. You really learn who you are as a person and as an organization when you face difficult times.
Yeah, no doubt. And like Mike said, we have Freddie Marchant here with us. He's director of sales, so he's out there having a ton of conversations, I guess more virtually than being out there, right, Freddie?
Yeah, talk about change. Everything's kind of online today all the time. You just don't want people walking in the door.
Yeah, that's true.
Time change, blood moon, everything else, crazy.
And it can really, really, not having people walk in the door, that's a big change for a lot of businesses.
It's a big issue.
A big issue.
Problem, yes.
Big adjustment.
Big adjustment, and how to overcome that is, going to set you apart. Keep your doors open in the future or close them.
Right. So hopefully we can just provide you some information from a business perspective, maybe how to deal with it, how to work with crisis, as Mike was talking about a few minutes ago. Just a bunch of different things that we're hoping that we can provide you today. One thing, Mike and Freddie, that everybody focuses on the now, right? And so one thing that I wanted to just kind of point out to our viewers and our listeners that you guys definitely know, and a lot of you guys know, obviously, is this just isn't a first time for something like this. This has happened many, many times. In fact, I just got a really small list here. The Antonine Plague from year 165 killed approximately 5 million people. The Plague of Justinian back in 541 killed around 30 to 50 million people. The Japanese smallpox, the Black Death, which was the biggest of all time, 200 million people. It was unbelievable. Smallpox, 56 million. The smallpox way back in 1520 killed an estimated 90% of Native Americans. Wow. 90% back in 1520. The 17th century plagues, year 1600 killed 3 million. The 18th century Great Plague, 600,000 back in 1700. So on and so forth, all the way down to, say, the yellow fever in the late 1800s, and the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu killed 40 to 50 million people in the early 1900s. The Russian flu, late 1800s, million people. That was a big one. Hey, one of the biggest that's still been going on for years and years and years since 1981 is HIV. I mean, that's killed approximately 35 million people. You have the Asian flu, the Hong Kong flu, MERS and SARS, Ebola, the swine flu. The swine flu was not that long ago. Mm-hmm. And now you have the coronavirus, COVID-19 scenario, where it looks like approximately 10,000 deaths up to around this point. And of course, that's a fluid number. I don't really know the number. But one thing for sure is that we have, in my opinion, at this point in time, we have the very best in medical professionals across the world. Mm-hmm. And they're working tirelessly 24/7 to find and create a cure and find and create a vaccine. They're already creating tests where it's been reducing for the time it takes to test for these things, right?
That's right.
And so we've been staying up on this, and the main reason we've been staying up on this is the same reason everybody's been staying up on this. They're interested in what's going on. They're trying to figure things out. But then also, like you said, Mike, we have to figure out as a marketing and a communications company how to help our clients communicate to their clients and their customer
That's right.
base. What are you seeing out there? Mike's a board member of Chamber of Commerce. He was in the room with a group of people the other day, all community professionals. What are you hearing other industries and other communities doing to help communicate and fight this situation?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what folks are doing is, number one, they're listening to what our national and state and local government leaders are asking and instructing us to do. We're taking precautions. They and we, and our encouragement to clients is to follow the protocols they put out. To try and reduce this curve that everyone keeps talking about, and try and minimize the impact. Mainly to make sure that the hospitals, the healthcare workers don't get overrun, and that they actually have the capacity to care for those. We have to keep in mind that there's lots of people who have really volatile illnesses and maybe already in the hospital already, and so there's only so many beds available. There's only so many healthcare workers. It's inevitable that some of those are going to be impacted and maybe get this virus. But at the end of the day, I would say from a business perspective, what we all have to do is continue to take care of today, but we have to continue to also look at the 30,000-foot view and make sure that we keep a bigger perspective in mind. The world is not coming to an end. Like Matt shared, there have been many, many other illnesses in the past, many other natural disasters, wars. I mean, we as humans, we adapt and overcome, and that's clear. I mean, you got 50 million people in, I don't know what you said, 500, AD or something that died. I don't know who kept census back then and how they kept track of how many people even existed back then, but 50 million people is a lot of people. And here we are, today, and we've bounced back, and we're resilient. We face opposition, and we find a way to overcome. And so, I think in your business, if you're listening, you have to do the same. If you're a sales professional, yeah, it stinks. It's hard. It's hard if you're used to knocking on doors and networking and having that highly relational type of sales approach. Now, what you have to do is leverage the beauty of the digital world today, and Freddie, you can speak to some of that as well, but leverage some of these tools: social media, text messaging, video conferencing, to make sure that you stay in front of your audience and you continue to move things forward, because this thing will pass, and there's going to be business that needs to be done now and then. Yeah, there's no doubt, and we're going to dive into that digital world today, and how you can continue to maintain and sustain business. Freddie's going to speak to us a little bit about that. We're going to give you some ideas of how best to communicate to your customer base, not only your current customer base, but also your prospective customer base, because there's lots of types of industries and businesses that are being affected by this, not just the obvious ones, right? Not just the restaurants and the bars and places that people congregate in and have group settings, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit about those as well. I appreciate you joining us today on the Brainstorm with Matt and Mike, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hey, welcome back to the Brainstorm with Matt and Mike. We're talking about just kind of catastrophic events, really. I mean, specific to the coronavirus now, but really it's a good time to think through your crisis management plan as a business, because all kind of things can happen, right? It's not just the coronavirus now. What about a year from now? I mean, no one sits around and waits on a crisis or a natural disaster or some type of catastrophic event, Mike, right? Nobody just sits around and waits on it. Now's a good time to really think through that. Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things that inevitably something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so to pretend like everything's going to remain not today's status quo, but the standard, what we would consider status quo, and that everything's always going to operate in, under perfection. You just expect that something's going to happen and prepare for it. So it's what it does. There's a lot of businesses that it's really revealing how unprepared they were.
Yeah.
Those who try and wear too many hats, and they're trying to do too many things within the business. Now communication's so important, and they're scrambling, trying to get things done. Maybe they're on a skeleton crew because maybe some folks have been impacted by this situation. Just like in every crisis, there's people that are impacted by the situation. And so now there's no one maybe inside to really handle communications. They don't know where things are at. So just having a plan of action that you can implement should something occur.
Right. Freddie, talk to me about what you're hearing out there about what people are actually doing to overcome the situation for their business.
Well, first of all, we always look at things from a strategy and process way of mindset in the first place. So it really is a great time to start looking at your processes if you haven't in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's also not the best time to look because it's also a timing issue, right?
Right.
So, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing a lot of people do meetings on Zoom.
Okay.
And Zoom is a great tool to utilize to have, really face-to-face meetings. And people are getting used to things like that. I mean, we have FaceTime, you have Skype. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different tools out there already that people are used to utilizing.
Device specific, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can have multiple meetings. Our education system is using that same methodology to teach our kids at this point.
And they're doing a phenomenal job.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
I think a lot of them are using some Google Hangout.
That's right.
And some other types of Google-based resources.
That's right.
In fact, I'll share some things that in a few minutes, what I've learned yesterday in a meeting from a local superintendent.
Yeah, I had like a 20-minute conversation with my friend Mike Stratton, who is a teacher, 6th grade science teacher. And so
did he send beakers home with everyone?
you can tell us from a superintendent perspective. I'll tell you what he said from a teacher perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Freddie.
Yeah, so those are some simple things, but there's also text messaging.
Yeah.
So great technology to utilize. There's also services in text messaging that you can actually have your company's logo on that text
So you're
message.
talking about mass text messaging.
Mass,
Okay,
yeah. So
yeah.
not just, you could send out that to all your clients, for instance. So doing mass emails, doing personalized mass emails.
Yeah.
Those are other ways to target and
email
help get your word out
communication
to other people, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
email communication is excellent. Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, so, a lot of people have already kind of putting some plans in place. It's unfortunate that a situation like this has to occur for you to think about communication because what's happening is what this show has done quite often is we've talked about communication platforms and the importance of communicating with both your current and your prospective customer base.
Right.
We talk about this stuff all the time. And now what happens is you get into a situation, you're like, I'll put this out there. We need to get this out there. How do we disseminate this information? And so all of these platforms are they're there, and you really should be using them anyway.
That's right.
Just to communicate on a daily, weekly, monthly basis with whoever it is you need to communicate with anyway, you know? So talk to me, Mike, about what you've learned from the local school superintendent, which is a very large school district, what they're doing.
Yeah, they're doing a phenomenal job. They were actually putting some e-learning plans in place, and they were really planning for the future. So they were doing some of these things that we're talking about. You should always be preparing for what's to come. And they were thinking snow days, things like that, where in lieu of having to take
Right.
that as a canceled day of school, they could be very quick to launch a e-learning day or 2 or 3.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not necessarily 12 plus. So they took what was a longer kind of action plan to integrate that, to get everyone trained, and they've pulled together and unified in not just this district, but many districts across our state, our nation, and have implemented plans to have teachers deploy e-learning across the entire school district. And so I have 3 young ones, elementary age kids at home, and so my wife is now operating as a school teacher for a kindergartner,
Right.
a first grade, and a fourth grader.
But has anybody been expelled?
Probably
Your middle. It would be the middle.
Right, they're at least in detention.
Yeah, it would be the middle
Yeah,
child.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's been plenty of
Yeah.
plenty of problems.
The
Some quiet time or
teacher's
whatever.
probably having a glass of wine on the job.
And so it's really it shows, and if they can deploy that many people and reach that number of, I'm gonna call them customers, students, then no matter what size your business is, you can do it too.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have those plans in place, don't sulk. If you can't go out, whatever business you're in, if you can't go serve your customers today because it forces you to interact with the public in such a way that's just not going to happen during these times, then take advantage of this time. Don't sit back and woe is me. Think about, hey, how am I going to attack this going forward? And how do I prepare to have as much business coming in the door as soon as possible? How do I open things up so when we can go out and serve customers in our normal process in the future, that I got a line of customers waiting on me?
We're talking about the schools, and just to kind of elaborate on what you were saying from a teacher perspective, my friend Mike Stratton, who's a 6th grade science teacher and athletic director for one of the local middle schools, he dives a little bit more into the teacher specifics versus the big picture
Right.
of the school system. And what he was saying and what they're doing is they have set up time. And so what happens is, say 9 to 10 might be about math, right? Say 10 to 11 might be about science, and so on and so forth, right? And then so the teacher has to be on during that period of time. And so, where you might only have 25, 30, 35 students in one particular classroom, he actually serves like 120 students
Right.
over the course of the day at different periods, right? So he's on for that hour, maybe even
Okay.
2-hour time frame. And during that 2-hour time frame, the kids
He's
that
got a
are
bigger
in
audience.
his 120 students, they're not on there for the whole 2 hours. You just get on during any time during that 2 hours, get your assignment, ask any questions. You can come back and ask questions as long as it's in that 2-hour time frame. So it's a pretty good, concise plan that they've put in place. They've done a really good job out of need, off the cuff. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like they've had to really pull together, and it's really nice to see people come together. So that's a big industry. Let's talk about some of the other industries that's really getting hurt and some of the things they could do
Right.
in order to help. So the other obvious ones are like the service industry, like restaurants, right?
Yeah.
And so that they're really getting
Especially
pounded.
the locally owned
Versus the franchise,
non-franchise,
right.
non-typical drive-through. So, the drive-throughs are probably, I don't really know, but I assume they probably might even see an uptick.
Yeah, and I'm not alienating like local drive-throughs. Local franchises. I'm talking about the big
Yep,
chains,
that's right.
the corporate-owned franchises.
Right.
Because there's people out there that's listening to the show that says, "Hey, we own a franchise, but we just own just this one franchise, right?"
right.
And so, there's no doubt.
It's those dine-in restaurants specifically, or
Yeah.
those dine-in entertainment venues or
Historically,
whatever. and-
dine in 95%, right?
Yeah, nobody's going to the local comedy club,
Right. None of that.
to the local steakhouse,
Right.
the local seafood, or Italian
Right.
spot. And so, Freddie, what are some things that they could be doing to help keep some type of business flowing?
Well, the guys that shout, "That's the way we've always done it," are bam,
Yeah.
instantly thrown into having to change their process
Yeah.
and thought on how to get customers in, reaching out to them, social media. You're seeing a ton of restaurants on social media putting their to-go menus out, letting people order online through Messenger even. So you're seeing some of that. So there's a lot of things that not just restaurants, but other businesses are doing to kind of keep the doors open and being able to help other people out. Just like libraries, you're having authors reading their books online and putting videos of themselves on YouTube so that your kids can actually listen to the actual author read the book. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that
And
actually
it's
is
just
cool.
out there now. So, through this situation that we're sitting in today, it's allowing us to really open up and kind of grow on how we do our business to reach the masses.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, again, putting that communication out. And what that really reveals is those same restaurants that can put out social media posts, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever that's at, Twitter, they could be doing those things to drive more business when they're not in a crisis.
Exactly.
And so they're missing out on those takeout opportunities. Mm-hmm. Those, again, 3 kids at home. We don't do a lot of going out to eat. We do pickup, even if it's a nice restaurant. Oftentimes we call it in because it's actually more relaxing and enjoyable if we're going to be with our family. Oftentimes for us to let the kids go play and we can dine at home.
Yeah, I'd like to dive in the next segment. Let's dive deeper into like social media and putting their to-go menu out there, because I think that serves more than just a restaurant business as well. Hey, thanks for listening. You're listening to The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hey, welcome back to The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike. Right before break, Freddie was talking about some of the things that as a restaurant could really do. And there's been a lot of focuses on restaurant online, on
Yes.
TV, from the government. I mean, there's no doubt, because local restaurants, if they're not open, they're hurting.
Right.
They have to produce every single night for cash flow to come in. There's no doubt about it. And so Freddie was talking about social media. Talk to me about, Freddie, about, a little bit more, dive deeper into social media and how you can use that, both paid and unpaid and organic type of thing.
Yeah, so organic, in other words, just what we regularly do on social media as a user, just posting.
Right.
But then from a paid standpoint, having, an agency or, someone else help you with that to where you can run ads.
And really focus on the target market.
On your market, that's
Yeah.
right. So you can really get granular on that, a lot more than what you can do just, to the people that like your social media page currently.
Yeah, I agree. And offline, during break, Mike and I were talking about how you could really use a lot of video. So as an example, in Freddie's point, you could actually literally talk about your specials for the day in video, right? Which gets a lot more attention.
It does.
Like video on social media gets a ton more attention.
Show the kitchen. Show
Right.
somebody prepping.
Show people what's going
one of
on,
those
what you're
specials.
serving
Yes.
today. You can actually do it multiple times a day. If you serve different meals, like if you serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you could actually do it 3 times. What Mike was saying a little while ago is it doesn't have to be professional video,
That's right. Especially in this circumstance.
Right. So just take your phone out, and quite honestly, today's smartphones, their cameras are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. So you literally could take and shoot a candid or casual video talking about and showing the food prep, talking about why this meal is great, and how little cost it is associated with, instead of going home or being home and having to be able to do something a little bit different.
And showing how they can get it. They can come by, whether
Pick
it's
it up, deliver,
pick up,
whatever.
delivery, curbside, whatever their format is. Keep reminding people, hey, here's how you can still enjoy
that.
our meals.
Right.
The cool thing about that is, or the cool thing about this conversation, is it lends itself directly into other types of industries. I mean, think about if you're an HVAC company that's got air conditioning, that's selling air conditioning, selling roofing, selling plumbing, all types of other services. The key there is, like, it's probably going to rain over the next 3 or 4 days here, right? And
I hope.
I know, to get some of this pollen out, because, with this situation, this virus coming at the same time pollen is, you don't know what people are coughing over, right?
Right.
Is it the pollen? Is it the, whatever is going on? But when it rains, from a roofing company perspective, when it rains, that's when you figure out you got a roof leak, right? And so even if there's a coronavirus outbreak, even if there's other things, you're not going to sit at home if you have water pouring down through your living area, right? And so you're going to have to call a roofing company to come repair that. Well, how do you get in touch with them, right? You got to search. And Mike, how much time are people sitting on their phones right now?
Oh, I'm sure they're scrolling through their news feeds on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on Pinterest. I mean, they're everywhere, right? And watching YouTube videos, and and doing anything they can because we're so accustomed to being just busy all of the time, most of us. And so every second of the day we want filled with something. And when you have more downtime, you're more likely to kind of find yourself, glued to those devices.
I know people that's told me they've seen the exact same social media post like 10 times, 12 times. It's like 35 to 40% increased in device usage now on social media.
That's exactly right.
And so where you want to post your information? You want to post your information online.
Where people are. Yeah.
And they're sitting there. Another good spot, though, is also television. Mm-hmm. Television has been highly debated over, the past 5 to 10 years, really the past 3 to 5 years, because of the cord cutters out there and going to more streaming television.
Right.
But when there's something going on like this, even on the streaming devices, you're usually watching live television,
you're watching
even
a lot
on
of
your
news.
streaming devices. So you're wanting to get the news. You have governors, you have mayors, you have the president, you have the president's task force. You have all these people that's breaking in constantly with press releases and other information, informing up-to-date information of what's going on, and you want it.
That's right.
Right? And so television is, and like I talked to our local television vendors today, and a lot of people out there in general are really wanting to help the local businesses get through these times. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of them are allowing significant discounts and pricing breaks on their services.
Right.
Like I saw one today, Mike, and you were in a meeting. There's some OTT, which is over-the-top streaming live television. You can actually buy local within like a 5 to 10 mile radius for only $850 a month.
Yeah.
$850 a month on television.
Right.
That's usually $3,000 a month.
Right.
Right. And so there's some significant savings that you can take advantage of in order to communicate with your prospective and current customer bases. Because, Mike, like you just said, roofs leak when there's a storm, right?
Right.
Toilets still get clogged up, right? Mm-hmm. Air conditioning still goes out, right?
That's right. Hey, another thing that you're at home, go look in your closet. Maybe it's time to update your wardrobe. There's lots of local retailers that they don't have the foot traffic they normally do.
Right.
They may have e-commerce. You may go there and place an order. I've talked to several in our market, and like Craig Reagan here in Lexington, South Carolina. I know that
Upscale
they'll deliver
clothing.
it to you right now. They will
really good stuff.
Ship it to you, deliver it to you. They'll bring it to the door. You can go online, pick it out, pay for it, and they'll take care of that. Or you can kind of build your wish list, and as soon as stores open back up, go back in and
what's their website? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it's
Craig Reagan?
CraigReaganClothiers.com, I believe.
CraigReaganClothiers.com.
If you'll Google Craig
Yep.
Reagan
Yep.
or go to Facebook or Instagram, you'll definitely find them. Mostly menswear, not just menswear, but mostly menswear. Some of your top brands and
It
really
is.
cool
It's Craig.
stuff.
It's CraigReaganClothiers.com for all of our listeners. So go there and shop. They would appreciate it. I'm sure they're a local fine clothing store, and they have some really, really good stuff. We purchased a lot of stuff from them. They're right up the street from us here on Main Street in Lexington. Good people too. So there's a lot of good things that you can do to communicate and use. So we've talked about television. We've talked about social media. We've talked about the use of videos. We talked about the use of email marketing, Freddie. We talked about the use of text messaging. I don't know if Freddie or Mike, one of you guys talked about text messaging, in mass text messaging. We've talked about just all kinds of ways that you can communicate. And like Mike said earlier, you don't have to wait until a crisis takes place. You need a good communication plan together. One thing that some of our operations folks and our client managers mentioned to some of their clients, and I know that they've had some virtual meetings with, is just some crisis consulting. You can call us, you can contact us, you can get with whoever your marketing director is and create a plan. That's what you need is a crisis management plan. But that crisis management plan can just be kind of a regular communication plan, kind of on turbo,
Right.
right? I mean, that's what it can be.
How do you but have it ready to go, and then you revisit it, ever so often to make sure that it remains relevant, and you're using the channels that you need to use, the technology that's important. But yeah, that's a critical component to any solid business, is to have a great communication plan and then a plan to operate when things are outside of what you would deem normal.
Yeah, and we talked about we talked a good bit about different types of industries. It's really all industries that are being affected in some way by this thing, at least for a temporary period of time. I mean, just go on Amazon and try to order, something. They have. I think they're just shipping essentials right now, right?
Yeah.
This is shipping things that people really, really need.
But not toilet paper.
But they're not shipping toilet paper right now at the moment. So that's. But even suppliers, manufacturers, right? I mean, everybody is getting affected by this, and so if it affects everybody, sooner or later, it's going to affect economics, right? And I know there's a good many people out there worried about economics, but Mike and I were talking about offline just a few minutes ago, and Freddie, there's some things that you should think about that are positive.
Yeah.
Might not be positive right this second, but will be positive on the back end of this situation.
Exactly.
Right? And we're going to go over some of those things for you because we definitely don't want to just have a show because everybody else is having a show about the negative, the number of deaths, the number of people affected, right? All that type of stuff. There actually is some silver linings to this thing. One silver lining is it will come to an end sooner or later, and we want you to be prepared and how to capitalize and increase revenue at that point. You're listening to The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike. Hey, welcome back to The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike. And today is actually Matt and Mike and Freddie. Woo-hoo. Freddie is our sales manager here and deals with a lot of clients and a lot of people, especially from a sales perspective. In fact, some of our clients we help train in the sales arena, and Freddie does some of that stuff too. So today we're obviously talking about kind of the gorilla in the room, if you will, right? The coronavirus and just the situation that everybody's worried about and has their thoughts on. But it could be floods and hurricanes and earthquakes. It could be, there literally could be anything because this is kind of a crisis scenario, and we're trying to just help you think through a crisis management plan.
Yeah. I want to add one thing to that too, Matt. Natural disasters don't just happen globally or locally. It can happen just in your business. So, Hey, listen, a tornado could come and wipe somebody's building out.
Just that building.
We have a client that last year, they actually had a tornado hit their building, and they had to adapt the way they operated while they had a lot of work done to their building, but they made it through.
We had 4 years ago, we had a flood hit our building.
That's right.
Right.
We had the entire dam break.
Right.
And so, you just have to adapt. And so being prepared for those things, because sooner or later something's coming.
Yeah.
And you can grow from it, or unfortunately a lot of people don't. They shrink from it, or they go out of business, and that's
I think that's just I think that there's a lot of kind of living with the glass half empty, if you will, versus understanding. I mean, you can be sad and you can be scared and you can have some fear. It's okay. That's a natural scenario, right? The key is you have to be able to shake it off and lead.
That's
right? Because if there is any time to lead, leading in a crisis is the most important time.
Yeah, it's easy to lead when things are
great.
Things are awesome, right?
Yeah.
You look like a rock star. And just get out of bed.
And so it really is a time to lead right now.
Yeah.
We're just going to help you and give you a little bit of ideas, and call us, email us, contact us. We'll be happy to help. Facebook messages, whatever. We will help you in any way that we can. If you call us and ask us some questions, we'll be happy to help you free of charge. So we want you to be successful. Give us a call. We'll be happy to help you, give you any advice we can, give you some direction, right? we were talking about, right before break, we were talking about some different things to do in some different industries, using different tactics. Mike was actually saying offline during break about how when the end comes, there's going to be a ton of people, or should be a ton of people, that need your services if you're a business owner, right? Because what Mike was saying is look around your house and see what your needs are. Do you need apparel? Do you need flooring? Do you need countertops? Do you need those things?
Whatever
New appliances.
it is. That stain on the carpet is going to become really irritating if you stare at it for days or weeks at a time.
Right.
Exactly.
And so, Freddie, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about beyond this situation? Like, what should people do differently?
It's kind of like what we've been talking about, but from a sales standpoint, we live with our pipeline, right, with our funnel, and we also talk about forecasting. So you want to forecast what you may be able to close this month, 90 days from now, long term. We should be doing the same thing with our personal lives and families. This situation brought up, it's perfect. You can sit down, you can do a self-assessment. You can assess what around the house you need to change the paint color, right? Fix that stain, change the filters on your air returns, right?
Yeah.
Go back to the business thing you were just talking about, because
The pipeline
the pipeline stuff, because if there's business leaders and business executives and salespeople listening to the show, obviously people aren't necessarily buying, or there's a slowdown. So from a sales perspective, how are you getting people to move, or are you just allowing them to say, hey, no problem, here is a plan for you right now that you can even put in place for yourself, and we'll touch base with you later on? I mean, tell me how businesses and salespeople from businesses continue to motor down the road.
So you're still going to have that conversation. And one of the things that we need to remind people of often, not just in times of crisis, is that you still have to do business down the road. A new website isn't going to be put up in one day.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
So
true.
there's a time. So this is a great time to think strategy. This is a great time to have communication back and forth on
Very good point.
what things we really want and what things we may really need in
Right.
the next 90 days when we come out of this
Good
to
point.
bring more business in.
So Mike and I have been thinking on the consumer side, like look around your house to help businesses. What you're saying from a sales perspective is it takes a little while to put together a full-blown marketing strategy anyway.
Exactly.
And so let's start now, or let's have a conversation of starting now, in order for when things do turn around, then you're ready for the turnaround.
And we're ready. We can have a Zoom meeting, right, Freddie?
That's
Yeah,
exactly
we can jump
right.
on and go
We've
to a
had-
meeting.
We've
We'll
had
go
5
on
or 6 today,
FaceTime
in fact.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
One of the things people talk about too is the best time to make a decision is not when you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
Right? So, if you're a higher education client and everybody's not at school, right? It's a great time to sit down and go over your needs and have a strategy session with a salesperson to help you, come up with what you really need to do. And then when the kids are back, you're not, oh, woe is me, I've got too much to do.
Right.
You put it together during this time, and it's a perfect time to do planning sessions with your vendor. It's a perfect time to go over your current strategy. It is a perfect time to see what's new in the marketplace that could really benefit you and get you ready to go when the switch gets flipped again and we're full bore again.
Yeah, so that's a good point, because I'll give you an example. Right now, what I worked on, I guess probably about 30% of yesterday, maybe even more, was a strategy for a real estate firm. Like I actually had to type up an entire strategy and take in effect the short term and the long term, right? Because just 2 weeks ago, real estate was, you couldn't even put a house on the market for a couple of days. It was sold. Well, that's not the case right now, because no one's going out there looking at houses.
Right.
No one wants other people in their houses, right?
Yep.
And so there's some short-term strategy scenarios, but then there's some also long-term scenarios. And whether you, no matter your political bent or not, right? No matter if you're Republican or Democrat, no matter what. And of course, I guess some Democrats would disagree with me in this case. We have an excellent businessman as a president, and we've had excellent economic scenarios for the last number of years, right? He is going to find a way to help the economic situation. And whether he is him or someone else, I'm going to tell you that from an economic perspective, I feel very optimistic and very confident that once this thing is eradicated, we will see our market increase, and I think it'll increase quickly because I think business people will be so happy to get back to their normal, whatever that is, that I think the economic factor will definitely be there as well. Now the question is can the businesses be ready for that?
Be ready. Are they going to be prepared?
Are they going to be prepared? And so now is the time to sit down in your business and create a strategy, both short-term and long-term, for that scenario.
That's right.
So, that's definitely one thing to truly think about. I know we had our team email and send out a blast communication asking people how we can help them communicate any differentiator that they're doing right now versus what their normal operations would be.
Right.
I know we've had a number of people that we're helping do that with now.
Right.
And I just can't say it I just can't say it enough. I know, Mike, you're the same way. Freddie, you're the same way because we preach this day in and day out how important communication is.
It is.
I mean, communication is the key to success in your business.
Hey, listen, if you own a small business or any business or you're a nonprofit, whatever, if you are operating in any capacity today, tomorrow, you need to make sure that those that you serve are aware of it, because there are a lot of people that just assume that everything's shut down.
Right.
That nobody's there. Nobody's going to answer the phone. Nobody's going to respond to the email. Like it's a ghost town. And that may be true in some businesses. If it is for you, shame on you. Get back in the saddle.
Yeah.
Lastly, I want to also, and we know a number of people. I just happened to talk to this person yesterday afternoon, Eric Kavanaugh, who we've had on the show from Kavanaugh Thickens. He's a personal injury law firm, does some workers' comp, does some criminal stuff as well, but primarily a personal injury law firm. You know what they're doing? I hadn't even told you guys what they're doing is they've decided that for over the next 8 weeks, every single week, they're going to go to a different and buy enough food for different first responders.
Awesome.
And do a full catering job for a different group of first responders every single week over the next 8 weeks.
It's fantastic.
So I just think that's really cool. So props to you, Eric. And I'm sure there's a lot more people out there doing it. Thanks for listening to Freddie, Mike, and myself today on The Brainstorm. Again, go to thebrainstormradio.com. Download any resources, subscribe to our podcast, contact us with any questions you ever have. Thanks for listening to The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike.